The sun rose over the hills of Israel, shining on a land filled with fear and silence. The people were suffering under the rule of King Jabin of Canaan. His army commander, Sisera, was powerful and cruel. He had 900 iron chariots, and for 20 years he oppressed the Israelites without mercy. Villages were deserted, travelers hid in fear. The songs of joy that once filled the land were gone. But even in those dark times, God had not forgotten his people. He was watching, waiting for hearts that would turn back to him. Among all the people, one woman stood out. Her name was Deborah. She was wise, brave, and full of faith. She was a prophetess, chosen by God to speak his words. Deborah lived in the hill country of Ephraim, between Ramah and Bethel. Every day people came to her under the shade of a palm tree, later known as the Palm of Deborah. They came to her with their troubles, and she gave fair judgment and godly advice. Though the land was in chaos, Deborah's heart was at peace. She trusted in the Lord's plan. She knew that even when the people were afraid, God was still in control. One morning, as the wind rustled through the palm leaves, Deborah bowed her head in prayer. Her voice was soft but firm. "Lord," she whispered, "your people are hurting. The enemy is strong, but you are stronger. Show us the way." As she prayed, God spoke to her heart. His words were clear. It was time to rise up, to free Israel from the hand of Sisera. Deborah opened her eyes, filled with courage. She knew exactly who God wanted to lead the army. His name was Barak, son of Abinoam, from the tribe of Naphtali. He was a warrior known for his strength and loyalty. Deborah sent for him at once. When Barak arrived, he knelt before her. "You sent for me, Deborah?" "Yes," she said. "Listen carefully. The Lord, the God of Israel, has given you a command. Gather 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. Lead them to Mount Tabor. God will draw Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, to the river Kishon with his chariots and his soldiers. There God will give him into your hands." Barak looked at her uncertain. He had heard of Sisera's iron chariots, how they crushed everything in their path. Fear flickered in his eyes. "If you go with me, I will go," he said slowly. "But if you do not go with me, I will not go." Deborah smiled, though her heart was heavy. "Very well," she said. "I will go with you, but because of the way you have chosen, the honor of victory will not be yours. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Barak nodded. He was not seeking glory. He just wanted courage. If God's prophetess would go, he would go. Word spread quickly through the tribes. Barak gathered his 10,000 men at Mount Tabor. Just as Deborah had said, the people began to hope again. The sight of Deborah standing among them gave them strength. Her faith was like fire in their hearts. In the distance, Sisera heard of their gathering. He laughed when he heard the Israelites had no chariots or iron weapons. He called together all his 900 iron chariots and all his men from Harosheth Hagoyim. "We will crush them once and for all," he shouted. But God had other plans. As Sisera's army approached, Deborah stood beside Barak on Mount Tabor. The wind carried dust from the plain below. Deborah lifted her hand and said, "This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Go, the Lord is marching before you." At her word, Barak and his men charged down the mountain. Their feet pounded the earth. Their voices rose in shouts of faith and courage. Then something powerful happened. The heavens opened, dark clouds gathered, and heavy rain poured down. The river Kishon overflowed, turning the ground into thick mud. Sisera's mighty chariots, the pride of Canaan, sank and became useless. The soldiers panicked. The Lord threw them into confusion. Barak's men fought bravely. The Israelites chased the enemy all the way to Harosheth Hagoyim. Not one of Sisera's men was left alive. But Sisera himself fled on foot. His armor was soaked, his strength fading. He ran until he came to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. The Kenites were friendly with King Jabin, so Sisera felt safe there. Jael came out to meet him. "Come in, my lord," she said kindly. "Do not be afraid." Sisera entered her tent, exhausted. "Please, give me some water," he said. Jael gave him milk instead, warm and soothing. She covered him with a blanket. "Stand at the door," he said weakly. "If anyone comes and asks if a man is here, say no." Then he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Jael watched him silently. She knew he was the enemy of God's people. Her heart pounded, but she felt a holy courage rise within her. Quietly, she took a tent peg and a hammer. With steady hands, She went to him while he slept and struck the peg through his temple. Sisera died instantly. Soon after, Barak arrived, chasing after Sisera. Jael went out to meet him. "Come," she said, "I will show you the man you are looking for." He followed her into the tent and saw Sisera lying dead. Barak stood in silence. He knew that what Deborah had said was true. The Lord had given Sisera into the hands of a woman. That day, God gave Israel victory over Jabin, the Canaanite king. The people rejoiced, and peace began to return to the land. But Deborah knew that this was not just the story of war and victory. It was the story of faith, how God used a woman, a prophetess, a judge, and even a housewife named Jael to bring freedom to his people. The message was clear. God can use anyone who is faithful, even in the hardest times. The morning after Sisera's fall was quiet. The sky stretched wide and clear above the hills, washed clean by the storm that God had sent. The air smelled of rain and freedom. For the first time in many years, Israel felt peace stirring in its heart. Deborah and Barak stood together overlooking the valley. The remains of the Canaanite army lay scattered below, silent proof that the Lord had fought for his people. Barak turned to Deborah with deep respect in his eyes. "Truly," he said, "the Lord has gone before us. Without him, we would have been crushed." Deborah nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "It was never our strength that won this day, but his. When we trust him, no iron chariot can stand against us." Word of the victory spread through every tribe. The people came from far and wide to see Deborah, the woman God had chosen to lead them. Mothers held their children close, telling them, "This is the one who spoke for God. This is the one who gave us courage when we were afraid." But Deborah never took the glory for herself. She always lifted her hands toward heaven and said, "Praise the Lord, for he alone has done this." Days later, when the land was quiet and the people began to rebuild, Deborah felt a song rising in her spirit. It was not just a song of joy, it was a song of remembrance. It was a song that told of God's mighty power and the faith of those who stood firm when others trembled. She called for Barak, and together they sang before all the people. Their voices carried across the hills and valleys, echoing the truth of what God had done. "Praise the Lord for the leaders of Israel who offered themselves willingly," Deborah sang. "When the people choose to stand with God, blessings come upon the land." She sang of the battle, of the courage of the tribes that came when called, Zebulun, Naphtali, Issachar. She sang of the faith of Jael, the woman who struck down the enemy when no one else could. "Most blessed among women is Jael," Deborah sang. "She struck Sisera, she crushed his head, for the Lord gave him into her hands." The people listened with tears in their eyes. They had been afraid for so long, but now they remembered that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob still fought for them. He had not forgotten his covenant. Deborah's song also spoke of those who stayed behind, the tribes who hesitated to join the battle. "Why did you stay among the sheepfolds?" she sang gently. "Why did you linger by the ships?" Her words were not cruel, but they reminded everyone that fear and comfort could make people miss their part in God's story. The people nodded, humbled and thankful. They saw how Deborah's faith had awakened courage in the hearts of many. They saw how one person who trusted in God could change the destiny of a nation. After the song, Deborah walked among the people. She visited the families who had lost loved ones in battle and comforted them. She encouraged the farmers to plant again, the women to sing again, and the children to laugh again. The land that once echoed with the sound of chariots now rang with songs of peace. Whenever someone felt afraid or doubted their worth, they would remember Deborah, the woman who sat under the palm tree, who listened to God's voice, and who stood firm when others were trembling. Her strength came from obedience. She simply said yes when God called her. And through that yes, the nation found freedom. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Deborah walked to her palm tree once more. The air was calm, the sky painted in gold. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. "Lord, thank you for using me. I was not strong, but you were. I was only a servant, but you made me your voice. May your people never forget that you are faithful." Her heart was full of peace. She looked out at the land, green fields stretching to the horizon, children playing, families laughing together. The land had rest for 40 years, just as the Lord had promised. And whenever people told the story of Deborah, they would say, God used her, a woman, a prophetess, a judge, to bring light when the world was dark. The lesson was simple yet powerful. When you trust in God, He can use your life, no matter who you are or where you come from. Even in hard times, faith can turn fear into courage. Many years passed, and the memory of Deborah's leadership became a shining story, told from one generation to the next. The palm tree where she once sat became a symbol of wisdom and peace. Travelers paused beneath its shade, remembering how she judged with fairness and spoke God's truth with boldness. Deborah's life taught that strength is not found in weapons or armies, but in faith and obedience. She never lifted a sword, yet her words brought victory. She never drove a chariot, but her prayers brought down the power of heaven. As peace filled the land, the people rebuilt their homes, their families, and their faith. Deborah would often watch children play, smiling as they shouted, "For the Lord and for Israel!" Their laughter reminded her that every victory from God blesses the next generation. One day, a young girl asked, "Mother of Israel, how did you find the courage to stand when everyone else was afraid?" Deborah replied gently, "Courage doesn't come from being strong. It comes from trusting the one who is strong. I was afraid too, but I believed that God was bigger than my fear. When you know that God is with you, you can do anything He asks." As Deborah grew older, she continued teaching others about God's faithfulness. "Stay faithful," she would say. "Trust Him, even when you do not see the way. God's strength is made perfect when we choose to believe." The peace God brought through Deborah's leadership lasted 40 years, a time of calm and renewal in Israel. And though she eventually passed away, her story lived on, not only in the book of Judges, but in the hearts of those who believed that faith could change the world. Her life proved that God's power is not limited by gender, position, or status. It flows through anyone who trusts Him completely. When the world seems dark or uncertain, Deborah's story reminds us faith in God is stronger than any army, any doubt, or any weakness. So when life feels too heavy or impossible, remember Deborah, how she prayed under her palm tree, listened when God spoke, and stood firm when others trembled. You don't need to be powerful to be used by God. Only willing, because when you trust Him completely, He can do great things through you, just as He did through Deborah, the prophetess and judge who led Israel with faith and courage. And her voice still echoes through time, calling each of us to believe, "Rise up, trust the Lord, and do not be afraid, for the Lord goes before you.